Hey guys, it's that time again. Welcome back to 5 Minute Review. This week our game in the spotlight is Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen is an RPG developed by Deck 13 Interactive and published by Bandai Namco and was released on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC. Right, let's get down to it, starting with the plot. You take control of Harkin, a convict busted out of jail to help deal with a Rogar invasion that's threatening the world. In a style very reminiscent of Gears of War's opening sequence, I might add, but obvious inspirational cues aside, it's a standard high fantasy trope. The invading Rogar are under the command of Rogar Lords, who in turn are lieutenants for Adir, an evil god who is the game's main antagonist. Your job is to kick enough ass to defeat all the Rogar Lords, which will supposedly draw Adir out of hiding, and then you can wreck him as well. This will certainly happen because in history, three iconic heroes did the same thing, and by defeating Adir, they brought peace to the world. Again, standard high fantasy fare, I know, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's executed correctly. Lord's story is reasonably well done. It's good enough to hold your attention, but it's not exactly unforgettable. Now, character-wise, Lords is fairly weak. Harkin's your stereotypical fridge-shaped hard man with all the trappings that come with it. Minimal dialogue, scathing comments, that sort of thing. And honestly, the other NPCs aren't much better. Minimal's definitely the theme they were going for. When talking to an NPC, you're given several options of what to say, similar to Mass Effect and Skyrim. But the conversations are so throwaway and have no bearing on events or even how the NPC reacts to you that you lose interest quite quickly. As for gameplay, I know I'm stating the obvious here, but Lords is more or less a Dark Souls clone. It's more than just taking elements of FromSoft games and using them for inspiration. The vast majority of Lords looks and plays like a Souls game. That slow, steady pace, focusing on playing carefully and tactically, having to learn enemy attack patterns, stamina management, limited chances to heal yourself, gear weight affecting movement and dodge and speed, dropping your experience upon death and having to collect it from the spot you died. All these things are straight out of the Dark Souls handbook. Having said that, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if you're going to borrow so heavily from a franchise, it might as well be from one as good as the Souls series. Comparatively speaking, Lords isn't quite as polished as a Souls game, and it feels less fluid and a bit clunky in parts. High difficulty is a hallmark of Dark Souls, and Lords does its best to emulate that, but it doesn't quite pull it off. Now, let us clarify. Hard games are good, there's far too much hand-holding goes on in games these days, but it must be done right. Dying a lot and struggling with sections of gameplay is fine as long as you get a sense of progress. Like, oh, it's took me 4 attempts, but I've learned how to deal with that boss attack or that mechanic, etc. What isn't fun is making the game artificially difficult just for the sake of it. So examples being like enemies that don't get staggered during your attack and can just attack into your attack, or with like minute windows of opportunity so you get punished on trying to attack them. You can't learn how to beat purposefully unfair mechanics. Now, Lords is guilty of this, but thankfully only in maybe the last third of the game. Is this really an issue? And actually, the first half of the game is reasonably easy, which isn't bad per se, but it just makes a huge spike in difficulty later on all the more jarring. There are a few nice touches though, that are a nice addition to the formula I've just described. As well as getting experience when you kill an enemy, for each kill you get a stacking experience multiplier that resets when you use a checkpoint. So if you're playing well and are feeling daring, you might opt to skip a checkpoint. You won't recover your health and potions, but the potential payoff is loads of bonus experience. Now, another good addition is when you die, you drop your experience, as in a Souls game, but with an added caveat. The longer it takes for you to find where you drop your XP, the lower amount you get back. This is designed to make you try and get there as soon as possible, but rushing makes you reckless, and can lead to you dying again and losing that XP for good. So it's a careful balancing act of being cautious but quick. Also, when you hit a checkpoint up, you can spend your experience to level up, but even if you don't have enough XP on you to afford that next ability or spell point, you can bank your current XP towards it and it's safe even if you die. The bosses in the game also deserve a mention, most of them having segmented health bars with each segment denoting phases. Having to vary your tactics mid-fight to deal with new threats and attacks as a new phase happens is a welcome change to traditional boss fights of do this to win. The bosses are generally well designed and challenging, except for Lost Brothers. Seriously, fuck Lost Brothers. Finally, the music is pretty good in Lords for the most part. It's slow and somber and builds the level of atmosphere of it being you against the world. Boss fights, on the other hand, are a cacophony of orchestral sound made to put you on the edge of your seat. So in closing, Lords is pretty good. It's not quite able to pull off the games it's trying to emulate though. If you're a veteran Souls player, then this title might disappoint you a bit, but not massively so. Conversely, if you're new to this style of RPG, then it's a good stepping stone before you tackle Big Daddy FromSoft games. Overall, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. So there you have it guys, a 5-minute review of Lords of the Fallen. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Feel free to drop a like if you did, and leave a comment with your thoughts on the video, and I'll catch you all on the next edition of 5-minute review.